And phthalates basically mess with your endocrine system. And so they they can really, really dial up inflammation for someone like me with endo, for example.
Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm Jo Clark and I'm so glad you're here. And this is a podcast for women who are ready to break free from outdated stereotypes, rediscover themselves, and embrace the endless opportunities that midlife brings. Each week, I'll share expert advice, actionable strategies, and inspiring conversations with incredible women who are redefining what it means to thrive in midlife and beyond. From health and wellness to reigniting your purpose and passions, this is your go-to podcast for feeling empowered, supported, and seen. And midlife isn't the end. It's your time to shine, rewrite your story, and create a life that you truly love. So let's get started. Welcome to episode 151. It's great to have you with me. And today we're talking about something that's becoming more and more important for women in midlife, and that's low-tox living. My guest, Jaimee Vilela, is the owner of Cooki Haircare, a much-loved brand known for its ultra-foaming, travel-friendly shampoo bars. It's so loved that, in fact, it's got over 5,000 five-star reviews, which is quite astonishing. Now, with a background in marketing and publishing, Jaimee's career has spanned retail, startups, and beauty brands. But it was her own diagnosis with stage 4 endometriosis that sparked a passion for creating low-tox swaps in her everyday life. In this conversation, Jaimee and I talk about her career journey, why low-tox matters for all of us, how she came to buy Cooki, and the incredible growth that the business has seen under her leadership. And we also dive into why her products have become so loved by women in midlife. And Jaimee's got a very special gift for all of our listeners, which we'll share later in the episode. Enjoy. A very big welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast, Jaimee. I am so looking forward to our conversation today. There's a lot we're going to be discussing.
I'm so excited to be here, Jo. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, as I mentioned in the start, you're the owner and visionary of a fabulous female-owned, low-tox and environmentally friendly hair care business called Cooki. But before we dive into how you wound up changing your life to run this amazing business, we're going to start with learning more about who you are, Jaimee. So tell us a little bit more about your younger years, where you grew up, and what was life like for young Jaimee?
Oh, I love that question. I am actually a Kiwi. I have an Australian dad and an English mum, but I grew up in New Zealand. So my accent is a little bit all over the shop. But I did grow up in New Zealand, and I'm from Auckland originally. And I had this, obsession with sort of beauty and fashion. And my mum remembers asking me when I was about 7, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a wedding dress designer or a World Vision worker. And and honestly, those two threads are still really evident in my life, which is funny because what I went on to do was, go into marketing, and I've worked in NFP, and I now run a sustainable hair care company that gives back. So I feel like that's really we weren't far off. And I was also absolutely besotted with magazines. So I used to just go from when I was really young, like 10, 11, I used to go into bookstores and magazine stands and just stand there like staring at the magazines and thinking about having a magazine one day. And so my first job was actually at a magazine called the New Zealand Listener, which was our current affairs mag back home. Really popular mag that's been around since 1930. Yeah, I was in mags for years. So it's quite funny looking back at childhood me and what I was into and then where you wind up. But had this lovely, very rustic New Zealand, beaches experience as a kid where you grow up with this beautiful backdrop. I mean, it is like a postcard living there. But my dad's from Oz, and so all of my extended family are here, and so it wasn't tricky to predict that I would wind up living eventually in Australia, and I've been here for 10 years now.
Amazing. Now, I'm going to be a sticky beak and work out, now, why did your father and your parents, he being an Aussie, your mum being English, how on earth did they end up in New Zealand?
It's so funny. So Dad moved over to New Zealand for what was meant to be a 1-year course. And apparently Nana said to him, oh, you could do it in Adelaide or New Zealand, but New Zealand's a bit of fun. It's a different country. You've never been overseas. So, so I went there, and then my mum had just moved back after 20 years in London, where she lived. She'd moved back with her mum, who was a Kiwi, and they'd moved back to New Zealand, and so they met, and
Gotcha.
that happened. And then Dad never came home.
Oh, to this day, he's still living over.
He's still in New Zealand, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what was it then that brought you to Australia? What did you, because you could have had a whole life and career over there.
Oh, funny. So I'd been saying since I was 11, when I grow up, I'm moving to Sydney. So my grandparents have always lived in Sydney, and I am very, very close with them. And I just have always loved bigger cities. So Sydney was sort of a compromise because New York was a bit further away and harder to get to.
Mm.
But I have always just really loved the beach and the city, and the fact that it feels really cosmopolitan, but also is close to NZ. So it just kind of made a lot of sense. So I think before the ink was even dry on my high school leaving certificate, I was on a plane and I got a job as an au pair, like a live-in nanny in Manly in Sydney, and moved here like 2 months out of high school, not even. So graduated in the December, moved here in the Jan. Then did 2 years here working as a nanny as my gap year,
Yeah.
and then went home to New Zealand with the intent of doing sort of uni and, I think wanted to try and make New Zealand work, even though I loved Sydney because I thought all my friends and family are home. So I went back home and then never actually ended up going to university. I've enrolled twice and attended never, but I got this amazing job. I was in advertising for a stint, and then I got this amazing job at the New Zealand Listener magazine, and it was in the APN building with all the, Women's Weekly and Girlfriend magazine and Dolly magazine and the fashion mags, and we
Very
were
Mm.
all in this one floor, and we were the serious current affairs mag, kind of like Time mag. And I had the best time because I was working with the most awarded journalists in the country, and they were just these very impressive people, and I was sort of the token young 21-year-old mascot. And so I got that job, and then ended up just kind of climbing the ladder into editorial, into comms, into marketing, and I just never had to go do the degree. So I stayed in NZ for 7 years. So I worked through my 20s,
Yeah.
and the lure back to Sydney was too strong, and I moved back in my late 20s, and I've been here for 10 years now. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That is an amazing story. And I just love the fact that university is not always the answer for a great career. Like, it's just
No, it's
assumed
not.
that you cannot possibly in the world have the sorts of roles that you've had unless you've got a university degree behind you. And that seems to be, like, I've spoken to women who are older that have gone through the same path as you, but it's really good to hear as well somebody who's, in their 30s who's gone down a path like this as well.
It's funny you say that. And I think if I had gone to uni as an 18 or even 21-year-old, I would have done a Bachelor of Arts, and I would have been in journalism or in comms. And actually, unlike, brain surgery, those are tools you can learn on the job. And I was always, top of my class in English and writing, and like awful at the other end at maths and science, and really over-indexed on the written word. And so falling into sort of editorial and then marketing, those are great roles to learn on the job. And while I sometimes lament not having formally learnt marketing, I have been lucky enough to go and, work in these amazing entrepreneurial organizations where I've gotten this on the job training. And so, yeah, I think also I was very entrepreneurial always. And I think the idea of spending that time in uni, I just wanted to get out there. I just wanted to grab the world with both hands. And so it was a huge shock because everyone thought I was going to go do a master's or a PhD. I was always quite academic, and I just didn't even get my BA. So I
Just
don't
not
regret
academic,
anything, but
that's
it's
the thing.
funny. It's funny how it works out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
I mean, clearly you're a very smart woman.
Oh,
You don't need to have those bits of paper behind you. Like, what you've learned on the ground and being around people who have got, some of those skills. If you're not sure, you can always ask if that is the case. But amazing, and what a great leg or segue into what you're doing now, as in you've got so many different skills that you haven't been taught a certain way. It has to be this way.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because I actually did, after I worked for The Listener, I went on to work in public policy research. And so I was editing, white papers by Rhodes Scholars. And funnily enough, was working with people who would have been my uni lecturers. So one of them would have been would have been the law lecturer, would have been the history lecturer at the uni I would have gone to in Auckland, and got all these amazing skills from them. And then went and worked for Westfield and David Jones, and then a bunch of startups. And so I've just had this really broad experience. But when it comes to running something like Cooki, where you're dealing with the legalities of, getting certifications and looking at product formulas and shelf-ready packaging and what you have to say on labels, like it's very precise work as well. And so I think being in that sort of more legal environment really trained me for that side of things too. So it is so funny how life coalesces to bring you to where you are and what you end up doing. I love it.
For sure. And you'll see that more and more as life unfolds. You just go, oh my God, there's a reason why I did, might have been scratching my head 15 years ago why this was happening, but you can use whatever the lessons you've learned later down the track if need
Okay.
be. Yeah.
So true.
Well, amazing. That was an interesting because we never discussed any of that during our pre-chat. So I love going down that little avenue. So you mentioned you've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spark then. So where and how did that present?
Oh, goodness. I remember telling mum when I was 7 or 8, my friend Anna and I wanted to start a scrunchy empire. So again, not far off, but we had this quite phenomenal business plan, really, for 8-year-olds, where we were going to hand sew fabric and then sort of tie dye them by blowing ink through pens, and then we were going to sell them at the local mall. Distribution was fuzzy, so there was that. Never got off the ground, but the intent was there. And then I wasn't your classic entrepreneur through high school at all. I never had a lemonade stand. I wasn't selling stuff on the pre-internet. I wasn't doing any of that.
Mm.
But my dad is a real inventor. Like he's really, he's an engineer and he's just got this amazing inventor brain. And so he was always concocting things and coming up with different things. And I think that sort of created this atmosphere of creativity where we thought in a sort of more lateral way. How it actually manifested is that I ended up intrapreneuring in a bunch of organizations. And so what's fascinating about that is they say, there's an entrepreneur and then there's someone that goes to the outside and then there's an intrapreneur, and that's someone who takes on the most entrepreneurial job you can find inside an organization. So I've been a startup's first ever head of marketing 4 times, 4 different companies. I was at David Jones, where they had started Jones magazine, which was a really cool editorial sort of curation of the store. So different to a catalog, they actually made a full-blown magazine out of it. I believe that's still going. And I came in to sort of just after that got off the ground, I came in to run that from the DJ's end. So I worked with the editorial agency, who are a phenomenal agency called Medium Rare. And I sort of was the person that was the go-between David Jones and the magazine, and kind of got it off to print. And so again, always, magazines, editorial, but anything that was new and buzzy, I kind of wanted to be around. I actually finally put my money where my mouth was and left a very lovely job at Westfield, where I was managing all of the digital team from the head office. So there was a team of 12 and we were responsible for the programming across email, social, web campaigns. Like it was a very, very full-on pacey role. And I said to myself, look, I want my own business and I want to be able to do my own thing one day. This is a corporate job. I'm going to have to get out there and learn e-commerce, and that's really what I wanted to do. And so I got my first job in e-commerce at this amazing flower gifting brand called Florally, who I highly recommend. They ship everything in these sustainable, beautiful boxes, and it's just a great team behind that range. And I was the first head of marketing at Florally, and so they were a startup funded by 2 guys, and I jumped in, and so suddenly I was curating gifting add-ons and chocolates and wines and hair products and skin products that go in the box, and learning Shopify, the e-commerce platform, and that was during the COVID era. So it was when sales demand for flowers was through the roof, so they'd grown exponentially. So I got access to that sort of high growth phase. And then from there, went on to work for a range of other startups, and that's what prepped me to take on Cooki.
Wow. Again, that's a lot. I mean, you've packed a lot into a short time, haven't you?
Yeah.
You really have.
Yeah.
Yeah. You must sleep well at night, I would say. Your brain
Thank you. I'm
must
so
be
tired.
going a million miles an hour. So then how did
like
Cooki come into your life? Tell us
Oh,
more.
I love this question. It's so special to me. Okay, so I was after Florally, I went and worked for a couple of places, but I was working for a really amazing skincare brand called TBH Skincare, and they had just merged with Boost Lab, which was another skincare brand, and they were rapidly scaling. And I was again the first head of marketing there, and a very, very small team doing huge leaps and bounds and launching into Coles and Priceline, and it was a really intensive year that I spent there, a really fun year. And My husband, so flash forward, I've lived in Sydney. I meet my husband. He's from Brazil. His name is Lucas. And he has this incredible sort of mergers and acquisitions background where he worked as in M&A and also is very operations and finance minded. So he's brilliant in terms of managing P&Ls and he'd run the
Oh,
family
this
business.
is a lot of acronyms that many of us have got
Sorry, yeah.
no idea. Look,
Fair enough. We will wind that back.
you're
So
speaking a
P&L.
different language now.
Sorry. So M&A, so mergers and acquisitions.
Okay,
So
yeah,
he is all about buying and selling companies,
yep.
which is something so foreign to me. And when he's managing P&Ls, profit and loss. So he's the finance dude that can actually tell if I made money this week or not. Very helpful skill to have in the house, let me tell you. Because as discussed, I was Little Miss English and could not do,
Yeah.
was not doing so well on the maths and science. I have a claim to fame, which is I was the first person in my high school's history to flunk out of maths and explain that I didn't need to do it anymore. And they said, yes, you do if you want to go to uni. And I brought in like an Auckland University prospectus and said, no, I only need this many credits and I've got
Oh,
them. I'm not
bravo.
doing it anymore. And they were like, all right, we can't fight you. So I would say have an aversion to mathematics.
Yeah.
And luckily married Lucas. And he said, look, we know that, you want to do something entrepreneurial. He said, I think we'd be great at doing something together because you're brand, marketing, customer, product.
Mhm.
I'm ops and finance, and I can put the structure around the vision. And he said, I know you're not going to be able to do 0 to 1 and start a company or start a little brand in your own time because you're working on these two rapidly scaling beauty brands and having a great time doing it. And he said, why don't we just find a little brand to buy? I said, buy a business. Like, what in the 1987 car phones, Wolf of Wall Street buy sell is this? Like, it's not part of my world. I'm not from finance world. The idea of buying a business felt so foreign to me, I can't even explain it. But anyway, he said, yep, you can just go buy an e-commerce business online and it can be a very, very little e-commerce business. So, okay, all right. So sure enough, you go Googling and there's these small businesses for sale and they're not for millions of dollars. They're for a very small amount of money, in fact, for a very doable amount of money. And so I serendipitously had been freelancing for InStyle Magazine Australia, copy editing and writing for their print magazine. And they flicked me an article in 2023 on shampoo bars. I had never heard of a solid shampoo. I've used liquid shampoo my whole life. I've worked in beauty. I've worked on across magazines for many years. I'd never heard of this product, a solid shampoo. So it looks like a soap.
Yeah, what magic is this?
What wizardry is this? It looks like a soap, but has no soap in it because it doesn't dry your hair. It's just if you were to take a bottle of shampoo, which is 80% water, and remove the water from your bottle of shampoo and put it into a bar cake, that's what a shampoo bar is. So I'd never heard of this, and I was being flicked this really cool article on like Loewe is doing soap on a rope and Glossier is doing a face bar and bars are back and here's a bunch of shampoo bars. And I thought, what an interesting concept. Edited the article, off it went into the print magazine, didn't think much more of it. Then Lucas has his, side quest of let's buy a little biz. And in a few months later, I come across a shampoo bar company for sale. And it was the first business we inquired about. It was the first one I saw. It was so soon on our journey of trying to buy a biz. So suddenly, almost overnight, we're having a meeting with this lovely founder, and she had done this incredible job of, building up a database of 10,000 people, and she'd sold X number of these bars. She had good sales behind her and a community that loved them, and she'd called them Cookie bars, and because they look like little macarons. And they were low tox, free of nasties, no SLS, no synthetics. And I was really drawn to this concept because behind the scenes, I had been going through a really intensive health journey where I'd been diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 30s. And it was stage 4, it was bad. And I've had surgery and that kind of thing. And so as part of going through as anyone knows who goes through chronic inflammation, you're looking to reduce inflammation any way you can. So that could be diet, obviously exercise and lifestyle, alcohol, etc. But a really fascinating thing that's come through the data is that by reducing toxins in your household and beauty products, you can significantly lower the inflammation that your body is presenting you with. So I had started swapping out household products. So I'd swapped to Saba Organics for my dishwashing liquid and a Koala Eco for my laundry and I'd stopped wearing all my beautiful free David Jones fragrances that I'd gotten from many years there. And the last swap that I found extremely difficult to make was natural shampoo. I don't know if you've tried a natural shampoo, Joe, but many of them, not all, but many of them do not lather. And they are waxy, and it feels like you're just moving dirt around your head,
Yeah.
and not a very rewarding experience. They're not packaged in a fun way often. Again, with apologies to the many cool brands that are actually doing a great job of that now, but this was a few years ago. And I just saw these bars and I thought, this is a cool concept. I tried the bars. They were amazing. They foamed so beautifully. They cleansed your hair. And I thought, I want to buy this business. And so, long story short, we did.
Wow. And exactly when was that? You said 2023, or did I get
That
that
was
right? That's
2023.
not
Yeah.
that long ago.
No, not long at all. And by the end of 2023, I actually quit my job at the skincare brands to take Cooki full time. So I just bought Cooki, and Lucas and I said, you know what? There's like a little bit of momentum behind this brand with a bit of a rebrand and getting some new marketing happening. We could take this far. So I made the call to quit and jumped into the business full time in January of 2023. And I remember going for a walk around Lucas's hometown in Brazil, and I was like, what if it doesn't work? And he's like, well, you'll get another job. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
what's the worst that can happen? Why don't you jump in and give it a go? And he's always been so supportive. And so he was forecasting the stock and crunching the numbers and giving me a Sunday morning report at 7 a.m. every Sunday, which he still does, of how we've done that
Oh,
week.
bless Lucas. Well done,
We
Lucas.
love Lucas. We cannot do it without him, honestly. And basically, he left me free to kind of like, he was still working full time. And so we had his salary. And so he supported me through basically only working 1 day a week last year. So I was still consulting as a book editor for a psychologist, writing kind of leadership psychology books, which was super fun. And so I did that 1 day a week. And then 4 days a week, I was on Cooki. And basically, to cut a long story short, I rebranded the business. So we'd launched all new packaging in June of last year, kept the name similar, but made it look more colorful and vibrant and fun. I launched a few new bars. I discontinued a few other ones. And in January last year, we were doing 11 sales a day. And by the end of last year, we were doing 130 sales a day.
That's
It just exploded.
extraordinary. Yeah, well done. And we'll dive deep into what's happening there and the sort of products that you've got. But I'm just going to rewind a little bit and talk about something that I think is so important, particularly for us. When you were talking about the amount of chemicals and the inflammation causing things that we use in our day-to-day life, whether it be cleaning products or products that we put on our body. And I did a little bit of background reading into this as well, because it's something that, like you, I've done the same thing. I've removed so many of the highly toxic cleaning products and just general products in my life that I use for hair care, for skin care, for all those sorts of things is so important. And the ladies who are in my wellness membership, Better Than Before, that's one of the key pillars that we've got, is to look at reducing the amount of endocrine disrupting things that we've got and we use.
So important.
So here's a few details for the ladies around on what we can do to remove some of these environmental toxins and why it's important. So there's a non-profit report that found that of roughly 318,000 ingredients in beauty and personal care items, 1/3 lack toxicological data, and that's a mouthful, and many are classified as high hazard, associated with hormone disruption, cancer, and respiratory irritation. Also, the average person applies about 12 personal care products daily, exposing themselves to around 168 different chemicals. And there are studies showing endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, that are linked to conditions like endometriosis and fertility issues. So that's exactly what you were talking about before on your journey that you had.
Yep, exactly. Basically, it's hard for me to even talk about in a calm way because you don't want to be alarmist about it, but there's just so many things we're putting on our face and on our bodies that are disrupting our hormones. We don't have to be doing it. And there's lots of really lovely swaps out there, many of them Australian brands, that, their efficacy is the same. They smell lovely. They're beautifully packaged, but people just don't know about them. And you go into the supermarket and you just pull something off the shelf. And so I am really passionate about Cooki shampoo because our shampoo and conditioner bars have the same efficacy as the liquid products, but they don't contain these endocrine disrupting ingredients. So a really major one is actually synthetic fragrance. So there's things called phthalates, and these are in most synthetic fragrance. You can buy phthalate-free synthetic sort of fragrance perfumes, for example, but they're harder to find. But what you want to be looking for on labels is phthalate-free. And phthalates basically mess with your endocrine system. And so they they can really, really dial up inflammation for someone like me with endo, for example. But if you've got endo, PCOS, Crohn's, anything that's sort of inflammation of the body, you do want to be looking at swapping out your products because why not throw everything at it? The swaps are lovely. Now I can't live without my swaps. I love them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was so excited that I found a natural shampoo that was free of phthalates, but also free of any synthetic fragrance. Only essential oils are used in cookie bars, free of sodium lauryl sulfate. So there's actually a whole movement around sulfates, and people often say sulfate free is better. We actually use a coconut derived sulfate called sodium cocoa sulfate, which you will find in a lot of natural shampoo brands. And while it's not sulfate free, so you can't use it if you have keratin treated hair, for example, it's very safe, low tox, and great for people even with sensitive skin, etc. We are coming out with a bar for our keratin treated friends that is sulfate free, but our range cleanses your hair beautifully. And basically, there's no harsh sulfates, there's no chemicals, there's no parabens, there's no silicones. So a lot of us, we're growing up with our supermarket shampoo and it feels so glossy and gorgeous. And then 3 or 4 months later, our hair is actually breaking from plastic buildup on the hair. There's just a lot to it. And again, I think the thing I find most frustrating as a consumer is that labeling is a nightmare. There's so many false claims out there. It'll say clean ingredients or clean wood, and we do say clean hair care on ours as a signifier on the front pack because it's quite hard to explain if you're not. But you want to be able to give people that info up front. But we really stand by our ingredients, and my formulators probably are not very excited to get emails from me sometimes because I insist on auditing every ingredient of a new formula. I'm taking out polymers here and polymers there, and I'm asking if we can, will the structure integrity of the bar still hold if we remove this and add this instead? And I don't want any plastic laminate on the box, and they're just probably like, oh my goodness. But I think it is important, and and I want to make it easy for people. And I think with Cooki, my whole goal was, why not just make a shampoo full of great natural ingredients that anyone can use. And if you happen to want to go plastic free and chemical free, incidentally, we are those things as well. And I think the reason we've grown so fast is because the product's just good. And you don't feel like you're having to tick a box and use a natural product that's less efficacious.
Yeah. When people are aware of what is in a product, and I think they're made aware that there is an alternative that is going to be better for them. And we'll talk about better for the environment as well as something that Cooki is known for. People will often make that swap quite happily. It's just not knowing. I think we're shrouded with great marketing. And that was something that, we'll talk about how sneaky some marketing can be, because if you've got the intention of going, low tox, and you're wanting to do the best thing for your body, that happens, for the people who are in your family, you want to be able to follow. I suppose you want to be able to follow what's on the box is actually what you're going to get, and that's often not the case.
Yeah.
So how do we identify then what is a low tox product as opposed to some very clever marketing?
It's a great question. And these days we do have lucky tools like ChatGPT. So if anyone listening is into using that, the new Google, as they call it, you can say to Chat a prompt like, I want to be low tox. Here is the EWG website, which is a website known for helping you find low tox ingredients. Here is a photo of a moisturizer that I want to buy. Would you say this is low tox? And then it'll just say yes or no and give you an ingredient breakdown. So that's a great tool we have at our avail these days, which we didn't have 5 years ago, for example. But basically I would recommend going to trusted curators. So there are some wonderful people and websites out there. I think Irene Falcone from Clean Nectarine does an incredible job. She was originally the founder of a very large beauty marketplace that was later sold, and she started again. But you know that anything stocked on her website is going to be free of not only all the ones I've discussed, but even things like phenoxyethanol and some other little sneakies, which again we don't use at Cooki either. So trusted curators, go online and find these wonderful people in the low tox space. Alex Stewart of Low Tox Life, who I believe is credited with coming up with the phrase low tox, so lower toxin products.
Oh, did not
I
know
believe
that.
she is credited with
I've followed Alex for ages, but I didn't
yeah,
realize.
I'm pretty sure I will check that for you, but I'm pretty sure she's the original and she does these great courses.
Yes.
I really love a Facebook group called the Low Tox Project where you can go in there and there's these wonderful discussion forums and you can ask questions and search. And I think you have to educate yourself on certain ingredients, which is quite painful at the beginning. But once you sort of learn a bit more and you know what you're looking for and what you aren't, then you're good to go. But I love helping people, so I have a list of all of my swaps that's available. I should actually put it up on our website. I'll do that,
Yeah.
where I share it out with friends in my community and just say, here are some great ones that I love. And I don't make a cent off that, but I love helping people find, the ones that I use myself.
Mm.
And I think it's just so easy to get really overwhelmed by this and you panic and you go, oh my gosh, I use fragrance. I'm into, but no, you just need to swap a toothpaste and then you swap a dishwashing liquid. And then you fall in love with a beautiful natural skincare brand and you slowly do a swap. So I always say, finish up using what you've got. And then from your next purchase, why not swap one thing at a time and try and make it really, really easy for yourself?
Mm.
Start with trusted curators, educate yourself, and then, if you're really lucky, you get a list from someone who just makes it easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you. If you could do that, that would be great, and people
I
can
will.
go then to your website and find that. So, are there some sneaky terms because you've worked in marketing, so you know how marketing works? Are there sneaky
Mhm.
terms that people might use, or not
Yep.
people, but say companies might use to almost trick you into thinking that what you're getting is going to be better for you when in fact it may not be?
Absolutely. So some of the biggest culprits that I use myself as a catch-all, because I think it's still because I think it's still a useful shorthand for people, but clean beauty, natural shampoo. There are supermarket brands with the word organics in them,
Yeah.
and you look on the back and it's sodium lauryl sulfate plus synthetic fragrance, and you're kind of like, this is not good. So I say clean hair care on the front of my pack because for anyone wanting to find that, they can then flip it over and I've backed it up. So I think basically watch out for anything that says clean, but what you want to be doing is, if you go on, basically what I would recommend anyone do with hair care, for example, is go on my website, have a look at my ingredients on any of my product pages, and I'll say free from, and that's going to list a whole bunch of things
Gotcha.
that are things that I wouldn't put on my head and don't recommend you do either. And that's things like phthalates, parabens, silicones, PEGs. There's a whole lot of things there. And obviously, we're also palm oil free and a few other things, vegan, cruelty free, gluten free. But I think you want to figure out what those ingredients are. But to make it really easy for yourself, I would just start with having a look for parfum fragrance on the back. And if it doesn't have a little asterisk and say at the bottom from naturally derived sources or component of essential oils or phthalate free, then you're like, okay, I'm probably about to apply synthetic fragrance and that's probably going to be endocrine disrupting. And I would just start there and then branch out to the more convoluted ingredients because if you can sort of just eliminate synthetic fragrance from your house, you're going to be in a much better spot.
I suppose it's educating yourself to do that. People are great at reading food labels now, or most people are.
Yes, so
You can
true.
have a look at the back, and you know what's in something, and you can make a more informed choice. And I think it's using that same or applying that same idea to the products that you use daily on your face, on your hair care, your skin care, whatever else that you use, just to make sure that you've done that as well.
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And just out of interest sake as well, when you started to make all of those swaps, did you notice a difference in your endometriosis? Did that change or did it help support a better pathway for you?
Yeah, I did. And I actually have a pretty amazing story behind this, and I'll tell the quick version. But
Mm.
I did a lot of things at once. So, for anyone listening who knows anyone with endo, of which one in three of you either have it or, more of you will know someone who does, there's a really wonderful book called Heal Endo by Katie Edmonds. And that was sort of my Bible for putting myself into remission. And it's a clickbait title because you can't heal endo, as we all know, you can go into remission. But my goodness, that book is just the best start to finish for anyone looking at this journey. And it's got a lot of great low tox tips in there too. But she basically says it's a multidisciplinary approach. So it's reducing stress is number one, and then it's lifestyle, food, and then the fragrance and sort of ingredient swaps. And look, I took such a multi-pronged approach at once with that book that it is harder for me to isolate which did the most. All I know is I went sugar-free, alcohol-free, and gluten-free very strictly for 6 months, did pelvic floor physio, made all of the household swaps, and quit a very stressful job. And in that time, back in 2022, I was a different person 6 months later, to the point where when I went and got my stage 4 endo surgery done last year in Feb, I'm very lucky to have had it done by one of the leading endo professors in the country. And he said, Jaimee, the funniest things happened. After all endo surgeries, we send tissues off for biopsy to confirm that it's endometriosis tissue. And 98% of my surgeries, they all come back as active for endo, and all of your tissues have come back endo negative. And basically, I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you had it, but you don't anymore.
Wow.
And that meant that all of that tissue that was flaring and inflamed had gone into remission, and I'd put myself into remission. And so all I know now is that when I spray fragrance or I walk past someone on the street, I get a bit headachy, which I never used to with fragrance. I always loved the fragrance aisle. And now I find it very overbearing to smell synthetic fragrance, and my body's like, oh, no, we don't like it. And I think when you're not used to it anymore, it's very jarring to smell it. And I'm less inflamed than I've ever been, so you wouldn't catch me swapping it back in.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, that's your own personal experience with it, but I'm sure that is replicated. And as someone's written a book about it, it's written by her personal experience and then Vita's
Exactly.
personal experience, so that there has to be something in it. And like
And the
you, I'm the
fact that,
same. If you suddenly have removed something from your diet or whatever it might be, and it's reintroduced, your body does react. All of a sudden, it goes, doesn't like it anymore.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, also my bars still smell really fragrant and lovely from the
they
essential
are. They are
oils. So
beautiful.
it's sort of like, even if in 5 years they said, oh, as long as it's phthalate-free synthetics, it's actually okay. I wouldn't lament that I'd made this range free of synthetic fragrance,
Yeah.
because the customer's not missing out on the experience of scent, and like there's just less synthetic stuff in there, and I just think that can only be a good thing. But yeah, certainly for me, I noticed, the condition of my hair, my hands when I was washing in dishwashing liquid, they weren't as dry anymore. There's just a lot about cutting out that stuff that I think can only be for the good.
Yep, yep. Well, when a lot of those chemicals I read out before, they haven't been thoroughly tested.
No, no.
When you're combining those sort of chemicals one on top of the other, day after day after day, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes logical sense that something along somewhere is going to be causing an issue.
That is actually a really good point you make there, because, people in the low tox space who, have to defend that position, because there are a lot of people that say like synthetics are fine. There's this great quote from that camp, which is the dose makes the poison. So they'll say, oh, a bit of synthetics is fine. But I think what I love about a lot of the low tox influencers I follow is they say, watch the cumulative effect, because it's not just a little bit in my perfume, but when you're exposing yourself to, like you said, is it 16 personal care products a day, 12 or 16, then that does really start to add up. And
Yeah.
something I just find really, really interesting, in chatting to sort of fertility advisors over the years who work in spaces where they're working with women with kind of chronic infertility. When you go in for an embryo transfer, both you and your partner aren't allowed to wear any synthetic fragrance or deodorant that day, because so this is just like mainstream doctors. You can ask anyone who's done IVF, or who's done sort of any sort of fertility procedure, that when you go into a clinic, you will not smell a whiff of synthetic fragrance on a doctor or a nurse. No one in there is wearing deodorant, and no one has got any scent on them, because they say that phthalates can be so harmful to embryos.
Wow.
And so you kind of just think to yourself, this isn't wacko nonsense. Like, if my doctor and nurse are sending messages saying this, then
Yeah.
so I'm very confident in my position.
So it's almost like we're in a big experiment, really, isn't it? And it doesn't have a great outcome. And I think if you look at the fact that you can still have beautiful products, it, and
Yeah,
it, and
exactly.
what you've got isn't a great example of that. And one of the other things that I really wanted to bring in for you to have the chance to talk about was the fact of, you've got eco-friendly or low waste component to your products. That is incredible. So can you explain that a little bit more? Because I don't think people understand how big an impact we can each individually make.
It's so true. I mean, there's a zero waste movement, and if I was going to be a total purist about it, I wouldn't say our bars are zero waste because we're still creating aluminium tins. And that's not zero, nothing on the planet, but they are infinitely recyclable. And yeah, basically, if you were to buy a Cooki shampoo bar instead of your next shampoo, not only does one Cooki bar equate to about, it's concentrated, not only does that equate to about 3 bottles of 200 ml shampoo, so you're saving 3 200 ml shampoo bottles, but also we come in either recycled cardboard for the packaging or aluminium triple tin, which you're designed to kind of buy once and use forever. And so we've worked out that, in the past year, we've saved 300,000 bottles from landfill in the oceans because people have switched to a Cooki bar and they're just much more economical. So if, like I said, I mean, at the moment, every time you buy a bottle of shampoo, you're paying to transport 80% water around the country. It just doesn't really make much, or internationally, it just doesn't make much sense.
Mm.
So, yeah, we are really passionate about staying low waste and low tox and plastic free. It is tricky because, I think the only plastic things I stock on my website are we stock this beautiful Hinu hair oil in a glass jar and the cap is plastic. And we have the silicone head massager, which is obviously designed to buy once and use forever.
Yeah.
And it's not plastic, it's silicone. But anyway, beyond that, there's literally no plastic on the site. And it's funny now, every time I look at creating a new product, people say to me, oh, can I have a leave-in conditioner or can I have this or that? And my brain's like, well, I've come this far plastic free. I just don't think I'd be able to do it now. I know the bars are plastic free and that's great, but I struggle to even justify any other plastic on the site now because it's so fun, the challenge we've set for ourselves.
Mm.
So yeah, we are really passionate about an incidental swap and you swap to a product that works just as well. Our bars have 5,000 five-star reviews now, which is, we actually just hit that number this week, which has blown my mind.
So just
And
think about that. All right, 5,000 five-star reviews. How often, and I'll ask the listeners, how often do you leave a review? And I know because I've got a podcast that it takes effort for people to do it and a lot of people just don't bother. So to have 5,000 five-star reviews, that's amazing.
I was blown away by that. It was really special last week. We ticked over to our 50,000th all-time order and then 5,000 five-star reviews in the same week. And it was just this really beautiful milestone of like, oh, wow, that's a lot of bottles saved. That's a lot of happy customers in our community. Really special. And I think, again, it's because the shampoo works just as well. They're swapping the low tox and they're swapping the plastic. And I often joke to people, when if I meet someone at a wedding, I'll say, don't use my bars. Just go find any bar. Because my vision is that every Australian, man, woman, and child has a shampoo bar for travel because they don't spill in your suitcase. I often say, we won't have a shampoo explosion in Sicily ever again. And if everyone just had a bar for travel, that would be a huge win because that's, three bottles saved, but it's also just more convenient for you. Like it's a win-win. And then if they happen to be Cooki bars, great, thrilled. But I'm more like convert everyone to solids. That's what I'm going to do.
Convert
And so
everyone to solids.
it's
Well done.
more about that behavior change because once you get people through the door of their first bar,
Yeah.
then everyone just uses it permanently anyway because they love it.
And it is beautiful because, I've used your bars before and they smell gorgeous, like you were saying. They last a long time. They're not messy. They're not messy.
No.
And they don't take up. And I went away recently, as you know, because we had to reschedule this podcast interview. It went away with me to Fraser Island. Oh, I know. So it's been away on holidays with us, and that's the great thing about it. And if you travel on planes, well, you know what liquids are like and how dodgy that is, and you've got to be careful.
Gosh.
So another perfect reason why.
You can take your Cooki and your carry-on. You don't even have to put it in your main
Oh,
range.
so you'll have to write that as a little catch cry. Carry on. So just talk us through the range of Cooki products that you've got available today, and are there any particular fan favourites? Given that you've got so many orders that have gone out and so many reviews, what are you noticing? And I'll also get you to talk about what a lot of women in this stage of life have found.
Well, that was what I was actually going to start with.
Okay.
What most people don't realize is that we have this cult following. Sorry, some people don't like the word cult. This, how else would I say this engaged following, hyper engaged,
a loyal
following of people in going through the change. So people going through menopause, and I get emails every single day from customers saying my hair is now frizzy. My hair is now flat. My hair is now oily. Or I've never had oily hair. I've never had frizzy hair. What has happened to my hair? Because the hormones are just wreaking havoc. And it's just this really jarring thing that most of us don't realize that you'll go your whole life with your hair, and then in menopause, it can change into hair you don't recognize or know how to manage anymore. And your old shampoo doesn't cut it. And so we actually have discovered that Cookie bars are uniquely placed to help menopausal hair. And so I think that's why we've had this phenomenal, following from women at that stage. They're some of our most loyal customers. And so we have, for example, a ginger shampoo bar, which helps to prevent thinning. And, I'm not going to stand here and say it's a silver bullet. And if anyone ever asks me if you can use it with alopecia, I'll say alopecia is incurable. Let's be really measured about this. But ginger essential oil has been shown when used in studies against sort of minoxidil products to prevent thinning as much as that. So, there's some really lovely natural ingredients that we have at our avail that people have been using for thousands of years as natural sort of hair growth or hair loss tonics. So that's a really interesting one. So we have the ginger for preventing thinning. It's also very volumizing and sort of balances oil. So I have oily, fine hair. That's what I use. Then we have a purple toning shampoo bar for grey, white, and blonde hair. And I think for a lot of people during menopause, it's kind of the period where you go, I'm actually really sick of dyeing my hair. I'm just going to go grey. And I've seen this really beautiful
Yes, great movement.
going grey movement. And thank you, Andy McDowell and Jane Fonda and all these women who are normalizing this. Hillary from One Tree Hill. Then you're like, oh my gosh, why are the ends of my grey hair yellow? And it oxidizes. And so that's often heat damage or sun damage. But we have a purple toning bar that can help maintain that, that tone between salon visits. A lot of people with grey will get a professional toning, but our bar does this great at-home job of the toning. And so that's been really popular with people going through menopause. And then we have a cinnamon shampoo bar, which actually stimulates the scalp for hair growth. And a really popular one that I call the husband bar is our peppermint shampoo for dandruff and flaking. And so that's the one that gets stolen in the shower. So all the husbands stealing the peppermint shampoos, I know about you. I know where you live. Just kidding. I kind of do. But that basically the peppermint shampoo is for, dry or flaky or inflamed, angry scalps. And that one has this, incredible following of people with psoriasis, eczema, dandruff. I have people saying to me, I've used Head and Shoulders for 10 years and it's never gotten under control. One wash with this and it's soothed. And so actually one of my closest friends texted me yesterday and she only shops at Mecca. It's very glamorous. And she very, very, very kindly, bought a cookie bar in solidarity and she tried the peppermint and she said, you've got to be kidding me. This is the first time my scalp has calmed down. It's that the dry patch is gone. What is this product?
Right.
So that's been really fun to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, those, and then we have the argan oil shampoo bar for dry, grey, or curly hair. And that's our heavy, rich bar for really nourishing, wiry grey, frizzy hair, curly hair. But I do find that it's a bit over the top for oily hair types. It's too heavy. So
Yeah.
if you were to boil down the whole range, you'd go basically the argan bar if you have dry to normal scalp. And you'd go the ginger bar if you have normal to oily scalp, and that's going to cover you between them. And then obviously matching conditioners as well.
Yeah. So you've got a quiz on your website as well to help people narrow down what they would actually be best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and we also are very speedy responders on our customer service. So we probably, we have huge numbers of people that message us every day and we reply with a tailored recommendation. So tell us anything you want to about your hair. Tell us what's frustrating you about other shampoos. Give us your unsolvable problems and we will tailor a recommendation to you. And we have a 60-day guarantee, so you can return them to us for a refund and we'll find you the right one.
Mm. And so where can listeners then buy your products?
Well, in breaking news,
we might say that,
yes, we will. So, in breaking news, we are launching into Go Vita stores across Australia at the moment, which is so exciting. So, we're currently in about 20. Yeah, we've just gone over the line to go into a whole bunch more, which is incredibly exciting. So, if you have a Go Vita store near you, we're very likely going to be there very soon. Go in and ask, and we're probably either there or on the way. Yeah. And we sell on our own website, and then at a range of independent other health food stores around the country. And I always say, if you want Cooki, message us, we'll pitch them, and we do. But yeah, cookihaircare.com is our website.
Brilliant. And where else can people find more about Cookie apart from your website? So socials as well. People might like
Yep.
to jump on there.
Yep, we have Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Cooki Haircare, and Cookie is spelt without an E, so Cooki Haircare. And you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to chat business.
Brilliant. And what are you most loving about owning and growing Cookie right now? Because when you're talking about it, you light up. So what is it that you absolutely love about it?
I love the pace of an e-commerce brand. I love the product being beauty and I love the customer interaction. So I have this really loyal customer group of about 1,500 who are in like a secret Facebook group and we sort of share wins and memes and I poll them on things and I love that one-to-one engagement and I have a lot of customers who are, I know them by name. We chat a lot. So I think the social element of Cookie I find really fun and it gives me a lot of fuel. And for us, honestly, my husband left his full-time job 2 months ago, jumped into the business with me full-time. And so now seeing this tiny brand that we bought 2 years ago that's now, mine and my husband's salary is just so exciting because we're doing what we've always wanted to do. We're doing business together. And that's just so rewarding. And obviously we're a small business and we're growing. So most of any money we see goes straight back into stock, into bars, which is hilarious. So, it's a crazy time, but seeing how quickly businesses like this change and then me knowing that I'm giving people with endo and inflammatory conditions and just women around the country a swap, knowing I'm helping make menopausal hair more manageable. I think it's all of it, honestly. It's my dream job, really is.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, brand loyalty is so important. When somebody finds a brand and you've also got that personal connection, the sky's the limit for what you're going to be able to do in the next.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I like that now people know that if I launch a new hair mask, because I range a couple of other brands on my site, just two actually. And when I launch something onto Cookie, they know they don't have to go and do label digging. They'll know it's free from all of this stuff and you're making it easier. So yeah, I know that I'm trusted by my customers to curate well for them and to eliminate those toxins. And that's really exciting for me too. It makes me think about all the other products we could do one day.
Yes. And so where do you see Cookie heading in the next few years? Have you got plans, ideas, or where you might like it to go, or are you just going to let it evolve as
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I often joke to people that I have been so busy with my menopausal hair gang that I haven't had time to market to my own friends yet because it's just taken off with this group over here.
yeah.
Um, and I would love to kind of be marketing to other groups in Australia who, maybe aren't using a natural bar yet. I would love to expand into health food stores around the world. So
Mm.
health food store positioning is really exciting for me because I know that, you're adjacent to other products like us that have that sort of thoughtful or conscious formula in mind. So I'm looking at the US, I'm looking at the UK. There's lots of exciting conversations going on, but and then obviously my hometown of New Zealand, so my home country. So we're looking at going to about 5 stores there in September, which is very
Oh,
exciting too.
fantastic. Yeah. And I think women, because you've been concentrating, which is lovely to hear, with the women who are in the second phase of life,
Very
because
much so.
marketing and the amount of products that are thrown at the younger demographic is
Oh,
massive. Whereas, you feel a bit left behind, as in, well, you go into some of the stores and it's marketed for somebody that's much younger than you or pitched, or the ingredients are for, inverted commas. But the ingredients that you're talking about, even though you've been working with this demographic, it doesn't matter. Like if an ingredient is going to work on a menopausal head, it's going to work on a 20-year-old head. It's that sort of stuff that I suppose just clever niche marketing that you might have. But you will find the ladies in this age group, and well, not you will find, you have found how
I've
damn
had that.
loyal, yeah, how damn loyal we are. Because if someone is going to be listening, if someone is going to make, helping to make a difference for us, you've got us. That dollar, and we've got the disposable income. A lot of us, as
Oh,
we
I know.
as
But
well.
I mean, this is what I say to other marketers when I meet them. I just say, I feel like I have the best group of customers in the world. What I love the most is, I'll give you a couple of interesting examples, but one is that we moved warehouses recently and we've had to switch to one box fits all while my new lovely custom boxes come in. And we filled them with these packing pellets, which unfortunately look like polystyrene, but are in
Yeah,
fact
yeah, yeah.
cornstarch. So you run them under water and they
That's
dissolve in your
good.
hand and you can feed them to the dog and put them in the compost. The number of angry emails I got from loyal customers being like, I just can't believe you'd put polystyrene. I just can't. Why have I got this giant box for one bar? And why would you put polystyrene in it? You're a zero waste company. And I loved that. I was like, yes, you tell them. You tell the companies off. And I got to go back and explain, I'm so sorry. It's temporary. They're definitely cornstarch. But that, I loved that because they hold you to account. And I think there's just this sassy, like,
Mm.
I know who I am, I'm comfortable in my skin, and I am going to say things that are meaningful to me. And I'm quite looking forward to getting to that phase, like shaking it all off. The
Yeah.
second thing is I have I would actually go as far to say co-created products with my customers. So I've noticed during menopause that a lot of people have these sudden fragrance sensitivities where they just can't handle scent. I don't know if it's the hormones. I have pregnant friends who say this, where they're like, open the pantry and want to gag. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of women going through menopause that find scents very overpowering and stressful.
Mm.
And so we had this best-selling purple shampoo bar for, white, grey, and blonde hair. And I use it on my, lighter brunette. And they all said, love the product. Can't stand the jasmine scent. I want a fragrance-free bar. And so obviously most people love the jasmine scent, like it's our best selling scent.
Yeah.
But there was this small cohort of women that just said, I want a fragrance-free purple shampoo. And I was like, okay, I'll make one. So I just made one. And it's not something that was ever on my roadmap to make, but I launched 100 of them in the tin and then they've sold slowly but steadily. And I think I might have one of the only fragrance-free purple toning shampoos in the world. I've never come across one that doesn't smell of chemicals or something. There's definitely no chemicals, but there's not even a scent in it. And
Mm.
so, and then they'll say, we want this, or we find other products. So I'm polling them all the time. There's 1,500 of them that I'm talking to almost every day. And they get to tell me what's missing in the market for them in hair care. And so that part I find so fun. They're the ones that told me to Go Vita. So I said, where do you want to shop us? In November last year, it was like, Go Vita, Go Vita, Go Vita, Go Vita. I was like, okay, Go Vita it is. And so the minute we launched in there, they flooded the stores supporting us. And that's how we got the attention of the national team. And it's been this amazing journey. So I think when people feel heard, it's so true. You get a better product, you get a great customer. But I have the best customers on the planet. I absolutely adore them.
Oh,
Yeah.
isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. We're the
Well done.
best.
Well, you can only be a good customer if you get good service as well, because people are very quick to leave if they haven't found that. So congratulations on making something that people want to come back for, because that's not an
Thank,
easy thing to do.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now we're going to have all of the direct links in the show notes. So make sure that people go there. Plus, we'll be also having another special link that we'll tell people about shortly. But just some wrap up questions. You're entering or about to enter a new phase of your life, as in age wise, like you're
Yeah.
entering a new phase business wise. What are you most looking forward to as you get into this phase of the middle of life?
Yeah, I just turned 37 last week, in fact, and it is that sort of 3 years to 40. And I know that perimenopause is coming sooner for all of us than ever. And
Mm.
it's sort of like what I said before, I touched on it briefly, but I love the sass. I love what I hear from women 10 years older, 20 years older than me is I lost my insecurity and I stepped into this sense of who I really am and I don't need to please society anymore. And I wonder if it comes with, the changes in our face and our skin and our hair where we are not the same. And you have to sort of evolve with that and kind of go, okay, well, maybe there's some things that I was getting my sense of identity from years ago that maybe I don't as much now. There's just some sort of realities to stages of life in terms of, how you feel in your body. And I think, once you're of a certain age, you're valued so much more for your wisdom and when I'm sitting with female business owners who are older, I'm like, tell me everything you know because you've gone and made all the mistakes. And so I think there's this sense of I'm excited to lean into my wisdom era. I'm excited to shake off societal expectations of how I have to look. And I'm actually really excited to go grey. I've got this streak here. It's a really profound streak coming through. And I was talking to my hairdresser very seriously. I was like, when can I start growing it out? Like, how soon is too soon? Because I'm just so excited to go silver. And I just think, I'm really glad there are these much more challenging conversations coming on around midlife because there was this really fascinating article in one of the New York magazines a couple of years ago that was so viral, and it was called portaling. Not to sound too woo-woo, although I'm here for that as well, but it was like portaling, I'm prepared to portal. And there's this concept that like when you hit menopause, you begin to portal into this other version of yourself, and you get to rediscover elements of what you want and what you want to go after in life that are really important that maybe the noise of life hasn't allowed you to access.
Yeah.
And now you get time to do that. And that's why people write the book or they start the business or they, start mentoring other people. I think it's if you can pause and slow down and listen to that, you know, kid that was wanting to be a wedding dress designer or a World Vision worker and go like, what does she actually want to do now with the next 10 years? I
Mm.
think that's quite a worthwhile exercise for all of us to kind of go, what does my next season look like? And so I'm having a lot of fun thinking about Cooki and what that allows me to do, being a business that's online, which means I can travel, spending more time with my husband's family, doing more writing again, going back to my editorial roots. So I'm really excited for it. And I'm quite proud of myself for that because I think there is this terror of turning 30, turning 40,
Oh,
turning
that's
50.
it. There's an absolute dread of getting older in our society. And I think probably now younger women like yourself are seeing older women who may not be that much further ahead than you embracing it and
I
just
embrace it.
creating a whole new paradigm of what this stage of life can look like. So it's
So,
far
so
from over, far from over. Yeah,
far from over, just beginning.
absolutely. That's my catch call anyway. And so who are the special role models that you've got in your life, Jaimee? Have you got anyone?
I have a 90-year-old Nana. She turns 90 on Thursday.
Oh,
And she is this elegant, elegant woman. She still has bright pink acrylic nails, always perfectly done. And I've never seen her wear the same outfit twice. But beyond how beautiful she is, and I mean, we'll be in the hospital with my granddad or something, and the nurse will say, "Oh, it's the best dressed woman on the ward." Like everywhere she goes,
yeah.
people comment on her outfits. But she is so resilient and has profound commercial acumen and is astonishingly creative. And the way that she's navigated 70 to 90 has been very instructive for me. And I think the way that she has traveled, I mean, she was traveling up until maybe a year ago, even around the world trips, all these things. And she really inspires me that, your 70s, 80s, and 90s can be really I'm not going to use the word productive because that's actually not what life becomes. It becomes about being.
Mm.
You're producing and achieving your being and you're learning the art of being. But she's been being really well, and I've really enjoyed watching her do that. And then I obviously have other role models in terms of business and people that I think, do a really amazing job in the business world and who balance, you know, the low tox thing maybe or the plastic free thing or maybe just growing really fast on e-com that I look up to. But yeah, I think I have been very shaped by my nana for sure. And I feel like these days all of us are mentored by podcasts and articles. And so where perhaps even 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you'd have had sort of one influencer or one role model. Now I feel like I'm this collective, I'm catching knowledge and inspiration by osmosis from all these people that I voraciously follow and access. So I couldn't even give you another one because there's so many.
Yeah. What a great answer. And bless your Nan. Happy night
Ah,
to
she's
her
so
too.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful to have someone like that.
Aging well. Yeah,
Yeah,
aging so
absolutely she
gracefully.
is. Yeah, that's a great role model to have. And finally, what do you hope 80-year-old Jaimee will say about current day Jaimee?
I just hope she learnt to enjoy the journey instead of always looking ahead at the next thing. I think I get very caught in this, you don't even pause to absorb what's just happened. You're waiting for the next, always waiting for the next.
Mm.
And I think it's only in retrospect that you kind of realize the good old days are now. And I really hope that when I'm 80, I can look back on 37 plus, because it's my newest revelation, and go, oh, I slowed down and I enjoyed it. And I did a jig every time we hit another X thousand orders. And I got very excited when we launched into every store. But yeah, for me, I think contrary to many people in business, um, business is a tool, not a goal. And so I don't want my business to be my identity or where I derive my sense of worth. I want my legacy to be that. And I think that it's very easy to get caught up in the trappings of money and business, productivity. And I have said a really definitive no to that, letting that stuff shape me. And so I hope that when I'm 80, I can look back and say, yes, I did that, because that's been a really big shift in my last year. And now I look at things really differently. And yeah, I just think those things are such trappings. So yeah, looking back, I hope that I absorbed all of this and really enjoyed it. Like really, really, really enjoyed it, because it's a privilege to own your own business and to get to do life your own way. And I'm very grateful for it every day.
Oh, I have no doubt that that's going to happen, because you are designing the life that you're wanting. You're designing the business that you're wanting. So combining those two, having great role models and being so aware at this age of what you might like further down the track, I mean, that sets you up so well. So well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really intentional stuff, designing your life. Like,
Oh, yeah, it
it's
is.
quite rare that you have these moments of clarity and you pause and go, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And I want this, and I'm going to go in this direction. And I encourage all of us to do it more, because those pausings and slowing downs and writing downs of things can completely reshape the trajectory of your next 5 years. I
Oh,
like that.
and in that word encourage is that word courage. It does take courage to do that. So it's not easy, and but there's so much reward when you do something and it's often, you reach a goal, but it's getting there and who you become in the getting in the process, which is just so incredible.
So
Well, Jamie, before we wrap up, you have very, very kindly given all the listeners something special. So I'll let you share with the listeners what you are going to give them.
Well, in true cookie fashion, I would love to offer everyone 20% off your first order, including bundles with us, which is at cookiehaircare.com. So COOKI haircare.com. And you can use the code MIDLIFE20, MIDLIFE 20 for 20% off. Email us. I will be at the end of that email if you want sort of a tailored recommendation for your hair, but I hope you might really enjoy making the swap to a more natural shampoo alternative. And let me know what you think of it.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a really kind gesture that you've given to all of the listeners. So I really highly recommend, because I've been using the ginger bar that you had gifted me a
That's
few
my
weeks
favorite.
ago, and it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Favorite one.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yes. So thanks so much for coming on today, Jaimee. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us today, and I've loved our conversation. It's been, we've traveled down many different roads, but I've loved where we've ended. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Joe. It was a privilege to be on this pod, and congrats on 150 episodes. That's really phenomenal, phenomenal body of work there. And I can't wait to go and listen to all the other 149.
Oh, that's going to be a big job for you.
I'm prepped. I'm prepped for the next 10 years.
Yeah, you'll be right. You'll be really good in midlife now. You'll be up there, top of the class. Oh, thank you so much, Jamie. Cheers.
Thanks again, Joe. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to make the next chapter of your life the best one yet. And remember to share this episode with someone else who would love it, and connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Joe Clark Coaching. All the links and the details from today's episode are in the show notes or at joeclarkcoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe this show on your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps more midlife women find these empowering conversations. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Until then, take care and keep creating a life that you love.